So first of all, welcome everybody. Appreciate you all coming in. Not trivial at this. Thank you, much better. And not trivial at this at these times. So what I wanted to tell you a little bit about it, how Gong tackles natural language understanding, how it uses it, change many things in the business world. So a little bit about us. We are probably one of the fastest 10 software as a service companies in terms of growth worldwide. Numerous customers which you see, LinkedIn, Gartner's, GE, others which you recognize, and also raised funding from people like Sequoia who invested in Apple and Google. So we think these companies are in great company too. So let me try this once again. Work? Okay, we'll try here. So what are we doing and why is it such a big deal, right? If you look at customer-facing people, think about people who serve customers, salespeople, support people, implementation people, consultants, and so on. It's about 15% of the world's, the Western world's workforce, and they work with customers. Mostly they communicate with customers, talk with them over the phone, now video conferencing like the previous one, emails, text messages, etc. Only salespeople, there are about 2 million salespeople selling to businesses just in the United States. Now their whole work was considered, before we came in, was considered an art. So essentially, the only data anybody in the company had about what these guys do is anything they might have entered into some system, CRM, database, whatever. And when the company wanted to understand what's going on, why are some people better? Is a sales deal going to close? And what are customers thinking? It was all an art. You pick 5 people, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And it's kind of crazy in 2020, or even a little bit beforehand, to manage businesses based on opinion. So what we did as a company, we pretty much kind of turned the whole concept upside down. We built a system that collects all of those conversations, video conferences, phone, email, and so on, puts them in a single place, and starts to provide answers to those questions. So why is this guy successful? Why is this lady successful? Or why is this deal not closing? And the key, of course, is to understand the conversations, and this is the context of this meeting, because taking a 50-minute audio file and putting it in a Google Drive is not providing too much value. It's all about what you can make out of this data, right? So just an audio file, you can hit play. It's going to be very boring. But what we did, and I'm not going to go into detail of each one of those things, is kind of break it down into the understanding piece. Who spoke? What was the call about? How was it structured? What topics were in place? What did people say, et cetera, even not NLU stuff, what was shown, et cetera. And the same goes with emails, right? An email comes in, what does it mean? Is there an action item? Is there a buying signal? I'm not going to buy from you. What's the intent in the email, and so on? If you can decipher all of this, you can start providing value. So at Gong, we have, I don't know, somewhere between a dozen to 2 dozen models that understand, this is probably not even up to date, that understand anything from what topics were discussed, key areas, intent, buying signals, and what have you. And what I wanted to kind of share with you is mostly kind of what we learned through the process around building a natural language understanding-based system that's actually going to business users. So probably one of the things worth mentioning is our system is being used by tens of thousands of sales professionals and professionals in general. They're not analysts, they're not scientists, they're just people who come to a system and kind of look at a system to help them do their job. So our role as a software provider is a little bit different than just like, hey, here's analytics for you, or here's machine learning for you, or here's even like NLU stuff hardcore for you. So the first, this could be lessons to anybody who's trying to tackle a business problem using the tools or the expertise or the techniques that are in this domain. So the first lesson we learned, and I think people know that, but it's kind of pretty obvious, domain knowledge rules. Our core speech-to-text engine has less than half of the word error rate, which is the key metric that people use to measure success of speech-to-text engine, than somebody like a Google or a Microsoft or an Amazon. And if you look at this sentence, that's actually a real sentence that I copy-pasted a few days ago from a real sales conversation. And the salesperson is saying, cool, all right, I'll send along the invite as well as an agenda and a Zoom meeting, yada, yada, yada. Now, this type of discussion never appeared in any movie. So any kind of off-the-shelf text, speech-to-text engine that was trained on, I don't know, subtitles or Siri type of communication have never seen these type of sentences. You can see this is, I think, 100% correct or close to 100% correct. It's purely readable. But the reason why we're able to make it is because we're able to train our engines on something that I would call domain-specific, which is sales conversations. There is a lot of commonality between my sales conversation and somebody else's. We both must be setting an agenda, using Zoom and other things, and we're both not going to sing songs or shoot guns as other domains might have. The other thing is context. And probably one of the main reasons why we've been able to grow as a company is because every conversation that we pick up, we have the context. We connect to people's CRMs, and we know who the conversation is with. CRM, customer relationship management. We know who the customer is, why they're coming to the meeting. And if you know all of this, it helps you with understanding the conversation. My colleague here, Ruti, has a talk later this afternoon, and she's going to explain how we're able to sort of know that in a conversation there could be customer names, competitor, participants, in this case a participant, injected into our speech-to-text engine, and now the speech-to-text engine can understand, I appreciate the time, Keith, because we know the salesperson's name is Keith, and it's a hard word to decipher, but having context about the conversation helped us kind of figure this out. So this is one of the techniques we use to get accurate speech-to-text quality. Another thing kind of worth mentioning, everybody, and Yoav kind of mentioned, everybody kind of doing neural networks and what have you. So kind of the world right now is focused on building classifiers and predictors using deep neural networks. And one of our operating principles as a company is challenge conventional wisdom. And one of the things that worked very well for us is to actually use unsupervised learning, generative if you want to kind of be more specific, and you can get good results out of it. So a good example, two of my colleagues in Bal and Iran also have a talk, 25-minute talk about this particular topic, which is we are able to extract topics out of conversations. We leverage context, and we know that all of these people in the company talk about similar things. So we were able to kind of find the common themes that they talked about and generate topics. This is a way to sort of map topics along the conversation timeline, and the system identifies that this particular conversation is about integrations. And our kind of automated engine kind of figures out that this is the topics, and these are different topics for each company. The value out of it is suddenly we can recommend what works and what not. So this graph also kind of, they're going to talk about it, but it shows that the bottom performers at a certain company talk a lot about best practices, but the top performers don't talk about best practices. And here's a tip a computer can give people to how to perform better. Just talk about the right things, don't waste your time. Similarly, this deal that you're seeing in yellow is a deal that's supposed to close in a few weeks, but pricing was never discussed. And the system knows pricing was never discussed, so it can actually spit out an alert. Another thing is the answer isn't always in the AI. People kind of like AI, machine learning. It's a hot topic. We use it a lot. But the business need is oftentimes different. And if you think about a call summary, for example, you might be inclined to kind of look for technologies for summarization. But a sales conversation, as an example, here's a good summary, right? Key topics in the conversation, and here's the action items. And these are really action items I picked for a real call. This gentleman is saying, I'll send you a link, or I'll follow up with Keith, a different Keith. But the action items that you see in purple are actually based on machine learning neural networks, but the summarization is completely driven by the customer need. They're not interested in sort of a new summarization. They're interested in sales conversation summarization. And probably the last topic is the answer for business cases is typically not in the academia. Academia use cases and data sets, you have talked a little bit about data sets, but they usually don't carry over to the business world. It's nice that people talk about summarization as this example, but 90% of the summarization data sets are summarizing news. So if you want to give headlines to news, you're good, but otherwise you're probably barking up the wrong tree. Similarly, sentiment, 90% of the sentiment, technology or approaches or data sets are around reviews. So if you really want to kind of predict how many stars is a consumer going to give to a book or a bathtub, go ahead. But in business, there's very little sense in sentiment in most cases. There are some, but they're different. Same with emotion detection and others. So the answer is going to be, what do we actually need, and how do we go back and build something that's applicable to business customers? So that's pretty much it. Thank you again for your time. Have a great day.